Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to SwiftSlots. Today I have my own personal MDF routed track, Crow Valley. I'd like to spend a few minutes showing you around it and how I built it step by step. So, as I said, it's a routed MDF track made from 6mm MDF with copper tape stuck on. The whole thing was started in around the beginning of November 2022. I built it because in about 2005 I was racing quite heavily in slot cars, and I built Crow Valley 1 just to get more involved in the hobby, and it was great. But then through the 2000s my interest moved to flying model helicopters actually, and I decided that slot cars needed to take a back seat. So I sold Crow Valley 1, and incidentally, if anybody knows where it is, I wouldn't mind buying it back, but that's by the by. But yeah, so around about the middle of last year, 2022, I got back into slot cars in a reasonably big way, and I wanted to get back my Crow Valley track. Of course, I couldn't buy it back, so I ended up remaking it. The original track was only 3 sections with a 4th section planned. So this new track had 4 sections by design, and then a 5th section was actually added afterwards. It's all completely hand built, and all the stuff comes from a local DIY shop and constructed in my house. It was finished in approximately the end of February 2023 and is now used as a regular club racing circuit in my local club, and it's also just come back from the Usk Valley rally stages where it was very well received. So the base is 6mm MDF routed, and the slot is 3mm by 9mm. The extra 3mm was gained by adding a small width of 6mm MDF to the underside to thicken up the board only where the slot is. I'll show you underneath. As you can see, maybe you can't. There we go. Right. So hopefully there you can see the slits underneath. Maybe not. Anyway. No, maybe not. So the control panel, we've got a voltage regulator here, which is adjustable. It just gives you the ability to calm everything down. And we have a direction switch here. And the wiring on the underside is slightly excessive, but it was done like that because I didn't want to put a cover over it. I couldn't be bothered. And it's all 1.5mm lighting cable from your house, so it's really strong and won't come off, so it's pretty solid. The power is brought in via a bus bar all the way across the front of the track and then linked together with these XT90 connectors from a helicopter days. Now they're capable of 90 amps, which is ridiculous, but that's what I had. The lighting cables are XT60s, far more reasonable, but still massively overkill, but that's what they are. And the LED power is supplied by that little power voltage, that little power regulator just there. It just adjusts the voltage. That's all it is. There we go, you can see a much better here where the extra thickness is placed. So I designed the track on MDF, painted the hardboard with about, the MDF, painted it with about 4 coats of primer, marked out all the track, marked out the racing line, and then transferred the racing line to tracing paper, and then from tracing paper made it 40mm wider to get the reinforcing pieces underneath the groove. That was all done like that. And then to get the groove, I created some templates. And I've got one template here to show you. Yeah. So all the templates were cut by hand to exactly the shape of the groove. And then the template was then laid on the surface. Let's see if I can work out where this particular piece went. I don't know if I can, I can't remember. Anyway, whatever, you get the idea. So it was placed, screwed down in an area where there was going to be grass, and then the curve was followed with a router to create the groove. And the router bit I used was this one here. Now, quick word of warning, if you do ever decide to make an MDF track, do make sure you buy a quality router bit. My first router bit came from eBay, it was £3 and it lasted precisely 3 feet and then it snapped off. Literally 3 feet and it snapped off, and that was doing it in 3 passes, so it was only 3mm deep at a time. The better quality one was about £10 and it's the entire track and there's plenty of life left in it. So then I made this. Now it's a bit of a mess, I know, but it does the job. It was a plate that I put onto the bottom of my router, and that was able to give me the edge needed to follow the wood. As we can see, it followed it around there and routed the slot. Now obviously compensations have to be made for the offset between the cutter and the edge and so on. I can't remember what the distance was now, but it was about 3mm, but that was made up in when I was doing the template. The offset was kind of calculated, or something like that. And there you are. And because this is actually a racing line track, and it's not following a particularly straight line at all. I don't think there's a straight line on it bar down the straights. If you are very, very slightly out, it doesn't actually matter that much because it just adds to the flow of the track. It's not a big deal if you're just a little bit out. As you can see, there's a slight kink to the beginning here. It looks more severe in the camera than it really is. In fact, if I come up here, you can see it's very, very gentle. So as you come out of this bend here, it moves over to the middle of the track, but it takes 3 feet to do that. So that's that. Now, all the scatter is just model railway foliage. Now, don't use the old crappy wooden stuff because that just leaches out all the ink. This is actually it's foam, in fact. These bollards, they're actually on elastic, so they can move. The roof, the lovely roof here, again, just model railway scenic stuff. The car, that's from my Asda. And that is controlled by these buttons here. The people are STNE, painted by my daughter's other half, and did a fantastic job on those. All the weathering on the road surface here, that's all done with Games Workshop paints, just put on with a sponge and dragged out. The grey is from whatever grey that I found in the shop. The red is the red. The white is actually the original primer. The black scuffing on the ground is actually black paint. The skid marks were made by cutting out that width, about 10 mm on a piece of cardboard, put the cardboard down as a template and then just drag your sponge over the top. That's how that was done. And then the whole thing is sealed over with a mixture of 50% matte and 50% satin varnish, which gives a really good surface finish. It's not too grippy and it's not too slippery. The lamps, they're actually model car lamps, two different types. And the posts are brass. If I pull these up, I'm going to regret that. They're on massive springs, so if you knock them, they're okay. So they bend. And then they're on 8mm bolts with the heads turned down on the lathe and a hole drilled through the middle of them, and that solves that problem. The stickers around the outside are all from eBay, stuck onto plasticard. The toilet and some other 3D printed parts, the barriers, are all from eBay. There's a wonderful seller on eBay selling these things. The building is completely handmade by me. It's a scratch build. It's completely from brass. It took me about a week to make it and a week to paint it and detail it up. I'll put up pictures of this as I go as well. And the roof is magnetized. So we have the roof. The desk was from a seller on eBay selling 3D printed parts. I made the pencil case, the bin in the corner there, and the lamp, the desk lamp, because they didn't do one of those. The people again are STNE and they're modified from the camera crew. The carousel was inspired by the Nordschleifer, and the back scene is inspired by Cletus McFarlane's Freedom Factory. So the colours are the Freedom Factory and so is the FF. The actual road surface was created by stopping it here and putting this portion of the track right over to here, and then route out all the line and then cut the track out and move the track from here over to here, which obviously rucked up the angle over here. It didn't quite go according to plan. The back went great, but the bottom of the slot pulled away and the lower half of the road didn't really come up either. So the bottom of the road is made of filler, and the bottom of the groove and sides of the groove, they're also reinforced with filler. So at the back here, it's about 20mm deep, the groove, but that's fine. It all worked out good in the end. The building in the back here, I wanted to give the look of a dead area, something that's neglected off the main circuit. Might have gone a little bit overboard with the dead looking building, but it looks cool enough. So it's all bushy and undergrowthy over there. The Marshall point, again, is all made by hand, and the model railway's roof, the plastic roof, and the bin, again 3D printed. There's another bin down there, and some fire extinguishers, all 3D printed. The bridge was made of two pieces of MDF so that they're seamless across. One piece was committed from the original track plan, and the other piece was cut from a separate piece of wood and laid over. And I was hoping to get the whole bridge into one section of 3-foot board, but it didn't quite work out that way. So this back section here had to be lowered by about 1.5 inches, and I dragged that all the way down to halfway across the last board, just to get this transition down underneath the bridge. Otherwise it was just a bit too steep. It worked out pretty well. The back scenes are made from standard model railway back scenes, nothing special there to be honest. and they're all stuck, they're all self-adhesive, and they're all stuck on with the self-adhesive glue that it come with, and they work really well. They're not going anywhere. All of the back boards are actually made from display foam, 3mm foam. I don't know what they call it, but they use it for displays and shows. And the way I've done the corners is I've drilled a hole and I put a 3mm magnet, a 3x10mm magnet. I'm not sure where you can see, there's a bit of a silhouette of dirt on that one, you can see. So there's 2 magnets in there, and I use these angle plates, and they simply clip on, and it holds them into place. And the bottom is done with Velcro, stapled on there and stuck onto there. And so you simply move it across and you stick it on. Done. And it's not supposed to be solid, it's just supposed to be, you know, light, easily transportable, quick to put up and quick to put down again. The grass area in the middle of the track, in the larger open areas, isn't actually flat. What I've done there is I've cut from insulation board from your house, the stuff with the silver on the side of it for putting it into cavities. I've cut 5 to 6mm thick slivers on the bandsaw, and then cut them into the rough shape of the area, glued them down, and with 80 grit sandpaper just blended the sides up so you get a nice transition up. And it just takes the eye away from a dead flat surface. You can just see maybe there, it's just a little bit higher than flat. Visual interest. The go-kart, which I'm very pleased with, from eBay, that was really cool actually, I like that one. And we've got some jacks over there, again from eBay, repositioned into a position that I actually wanted. The fencing, a lot of people ask me about the fencing. It's not all that special really. I've used what we call in the cabinet making trade as bum bead. I guess this would be double bum bead. It's just basically wood strip from your local ironmonger. I think this is about 25mm high, and I've stuck on an extra piece on the bottom, again cut on the bandsaw, just to give it a little bit more height. If I was to do this track again, I would probably use a slightly bigger section, but this is what I had. The grooves were cut in the back on my snip saw, just cut the depth, and it cuts a perfect 3mm groove. And the posts, all 130 of them, is stainless welding wire of about 2.5mm wide, cut to a certain length, measured and bent, and then each fence has got a twist of bell wire. It's just stripped bell wire, copper bell wire, and then twisted in 3 places to hold the whole thing in. See if I can find a piece that you can see where it's twisted. Hang on. Ah, here we are. Right, so you can see just here, it's twisted about 8 times and then folded down, and then a spot of super glue put on there just to hold it in place. The actual fencing is just 5mm square galvanized mesh from my local builder's merchant. It's all been cut up into lengths. I did it on the angle grinder with a 1mm slitting disc, and believe it or not, as long as you keep the slitting disc completely flat onto the wire, the side of the disc won't touch the wire. It's only the tip that'll cut. So you can cut that through very, very easily on the angle grinder, and then get a flap wheel on the angle grinder and very gently brush across, and you can take all of the spikes completely off, going over maybe with a wire brush and a drill just to clean up afterwards. But you'd be amazed at how much work you could do on the angle grinder. It doesn't take that long. And then it's just bent to a section over the edge of my bench. And there you have it. It just goes onto place. And that's how it works. So when I cut the grooves in the Armco that it is now, I put all the posts in place all the way around, cut a length of bead, put the bead up against the end where the section starts, and then wherever a post was, just marked the post. And that was my mark then, cutting it on the snip saw. This is a test piece, and then just snipped it in, and then when it come off the saw, I was able to just drop it into place with a bit of glue, and there you are. All the stickers on the end, they're simply vinyl stickers that I had from eBay. Had them spare, so I just cut them up into 2-inch squares and stuck them on the ends just for a bit of fun. Looks quite nice, gives it a bit of interest. And then over the years, as the track goes to different venues, I shall pick up stickers and add them to it, and hopefully it'll be full of stickers one day. The power supply is an old charger that I used to have, power supply for a charger for my helicopter days. So that is 13.8 volts at 20 amps, so it's a beast. The tyres are from, I forget who they are, to be honest with you, it's a pity. I'll put a link in the description below, but they were cut down by half and stuck with super glue and twisted wire. So this is a bit of a problem corner, this one. As guys come down this straight, they come flying, and sometimes you can catch. I used to have a set of tyres here, and they were getting in the way, and the post was over here somewhere, and it was all a bit of a problem. So the post had to be moved back, and I reconstructed the tyre wall from here to this whole triangular complex. And what I did is I glued it all together with super glue, cut up all the strips. They come in strips of 6 by 6, in fact, 6 tyres long by 6 high. Cut it in the middle, and then glue them together, and just put a twisted wire, poke the wire through the tyres and down through the board and twisted them up. Just one in the middle. So this is now movable, and that is movable, and so is that. So if you hit it, it's going to really take the shock out, and with the post moved from here to here, it's not really a problem anymore. The tyres were actually Britain's tractor tyres, and I took one off the Britain's tractor, copied it into a rubber mould, and then recreated it in resin times however many is on 12, I think it is on this track. I'll take you around the back of the grotty zone, just down here. I was quite pleased with the way this turned out. The gravel turned out pretty well. It's just basically a bit of scatter and a bit of sand for the most part. It's just supposed to represent a grotty part of the track that's not seen by the public particularly, and therefore no one cares about it, so it's just left to rot. That red and white pillar that you can see is handmade on the lathe. It's actually designed to fill up a hole. I put a fire extinguisher there, and I decided it wasn't good there, so I had a hole to fill, so I made up that bollard on the lathe and just painted it. As you can see, the concrete part of the Nordschleifer bend here is done in a very similar way, not the same but very similar, and the actual profile, if you go onto Nordschleifer on Google Earth, you can see that the shape of this bend is very similar to the Nordschleifer itself. Very, very similar, just it's more than half round. All the boards are 4x2 6mm MDF, and all the wood here that supports it was actually 70mm by 20mm PSC, so it's planed and square edged, and then cut through the bandsaw in half. So that's about 35mm by 20mm, and it's just a basic square frame with the MDF screwed and glued to it, and then these support pieces cut and fitted in. It's not rocket science, but it's very effective and very light. All the legs are tent posts, believe it or not, and although this string, or para cable, looks a little bit crazy, they're all designed to be in tension against each other. So all the angles on this left end are all pointing towards the middle, and all the ones on this end are pointing towards the middle as well, so they pull against each other. And the same with the cross members, they all pull against each other. So when all the legs are all in tension against the paracord, it makes a reasonably solid base. At the moment there's metal arms that go on the end here as well, which just mimic the wire into the holes in the legs. I haven't got those in for a second because it's not really necessary. I'm just doing this YouTube video to show you the track, but they're just there to strengthen up a little bit more, and they work pretty well. So here are the rods that I've usually got fitted, and they just strengthen up the ends as well, and that works really, really well. So I'll run you some laps. I'm not going to go fast. I haven't cleaned the track, so the back end of this car is a little bit loose, but I'll just run some laps just so that you can see how it runs, just get an idea. And to reverse the direction of the track, you simply flick the switch, and that's the last electrical item in the system before the track. So it doesn't matter what controller you use, it won't hurt it. And then you can go off the other way. I say I'm not going fast here, I'm just driving to demonstrate. I haven't cleaned the track, so the back end is a little bit loose. I haven't cleaned the tyres. And there you go. So Crow Valley 2 is actually 14 feet long. It's made up of 5 sections of 3x2 and stands approximately a metre from the floor. The middle section here is again a 3x2, but it's turned 90 degrees to the other boards. Also, Crow Valley has got a bit of a trick up its sleeve. We don't actually have to run this section here. When Crow Valley 2 is run without this section here, it very closely mimics Crow Valley 1, the original build, but with the addition of the carousel section here. So I will take this section apart here now, and I will do another video with the section removed. So it's only 5 sections long, so it brings it down to 11 feet long. So here it is in its shortened state. It does rather change the flavour of it, but it still makes it a nice little track to run on. And as you can see, I've designed the track so that everything all still lines up and still all looks in keeping, as if it was possibly even made like that intentionally. And you can still run tidy laps around it. So there we are. That just gives you a little extra change if you require it. So this has been Crow Valley 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've seen some things that you could possibly use in your own track build. And trust me, building an MDF router track is not that hard. It's just a little bit of thought, a little bit of care and a little bit of time, and you can do anything you want. So if you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe, and then you can hit the bell for any other content that I make. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Until the next time.